Making a pair of high-quality blacksmith tongs has never been so easy. Geroge Witzke of Witzke Ironworks shows us how in an uncomplicated way that you can remember at the forge. Hi everyone, and welcome to the first Arizona Artists Blacksmith Association YouTube demonstration. I'm Steve Miller, the first Vice President of AABA. With COVID-19 running wild, we've had to cancel our 2020 demonstrations to this point. Rather than cancel another one, we've decided to make them virtual and keep AABA running. Of course, when this is over, we'll start up the in-person demos again and catch up on all the camaraderie we're missing out on. We may even continue to post the demos on YouTube. Please let us know how you like this format in the comments section. I'll do my best to get you answers from George, except for the one of the questions his wife April asked, who, by the way, did an excellent job filming for us. Thumbs up for April. Don't forget to click the subscribe button so you won't miss the next one. We would appreciate a donation to help defray the cost of the demonstration. You can click on the link below to donate. So let's get to the forge and see what Geroge Witzke's method for making tongs.
Good morning. Welcome to Kanab, Utah. I'm Geroge Witzke. This is my shop. We're unfortunately didn't get to do the demo in Flagstaff, so they asked me to try videotaping one. I don't know how photogenic I am. We'll find out how this goes. My beautiful bride is doing the camera work, and so we'll see if we can put this together for you. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to make 3 different types of tongs and a punch. So I'm going to make the punch first, and that's going to be for drifting our holes later. But we're going to do a couple of different style of bolt tongs. One that I normally do all the time. Another one I seen Joey Vandersteed doing, and I thought it was kind of cool, different way of doing it. So I'm going to do it too. And then we're going to do a box job. So first off, with the punch, I'm using S7. I got the fire going. I'm going to get a piece in. And we're going to get us a punch up and going. So this is kind of a view of my shop, such as it is. It's a bit of a cluster. I got a lot of things going on at once, but I teach classes geared towards the tourists in our area. So I have 6 forging stations here, generally short-term stuff. Still doing production work, and also doing plasma cut stuff, doing signs and things like that. Get a little noisy here in a minute. I'm going to use the power hammer to draw this out some. And I understand a lot of people ain't going to have power hammers, so it's going to be good old-fashioned handwork. I'll be doing some of that too, but I'm going to try to make this, try not to get too long and boring on this. Any questions, y'all feel free just to shout them out, okay? I've I said, the steel I'm using for this punch is S7. Pretty good stuff. I get it forged down what shape I like, throw it out on the ground, just let it air cool, and then I'll hit it on the belt sander a little to clean it up. We want it as smooth and round as we can get it because we're using it for a punch and a drift. So I hit this one a little bit with a hot rasp and cleaned it up some, but I'll end up cleaning it up a little more with the belt sander. When I get to making the tongs, they're going to be just hot rolled mild steel. Now, I know a lot of people have argument with that. They think you need to use carbon steels of different grades and stuff. I never have. I've always just used hot rolled mild steel. I've had good luck with it. I have less breakage with this than I do the carbon stuff. Every pair of carbon tongs I got in here have been welded back together because they don't hold up.
What did you just do there? You need to show them what.
I was just using a little tool here because I've got my platen dies on here. They're flat. They'll put square corner marks on the steel. So I use this to so I can hit that angle and clean those up a little, and then I'll finish it off just hammering it by hand. But that helps kind of clean it up. I've got drawing dies, but I'm going to end up using square dies later on for different stuff in this process. So I don't want to be changing dies in the middle of everything. So right now I'm going to kind of get this down to about a 1/4 inch point, maybe a little more. What I need is a 3/8 inch punch because I'm punching my holes at the 3/8 to use 3/8 rivets. So I want to make sure I can drift that hole out to a nice 3/8 hole, maybe a hair bigger. You're riveting in hot anyway, so the rivet's going to swell. So I'm just going to kind of clean this up a little, get all the high spots off. Getting pretty nice right now. I'll do one more heat, hot rasp it off a little bit, and just throw it out and let it cool. This just kind of rounds it up, takes any sharp edges off. Like I say, I'm probably going to hit it on the sander, belt sander anyway, but I don't know, it's looking pretty good right there. I may not have to. So straight, pretty decent shape. I think I'll just let it go at that. Just toss it off, let it cool. Alright, next step. I'm going to make I'm going to make this style of box tongue or V-bent jaw first. This is the one I usually do. Start out with about a 10-inch piece of 1 by 5/16. You can use 1 by 3/8. I like it too, but the 5/16 is plenty thick enough for what we're doing. My measurements, I've already got my marks on here. If you can see them, my little ruler stick here. So I'm about 1 inch off the tip. I'm going to just come in closer. I'm about 1 inch here, 1.5 inches here. This is going to be my jaw right in here. It's going to be this jaw line. All right, this part here will be the bit, and then back here we're at about 3.5 inches. That's the back side of the boss. So this area right here is going to be the boss. This is going to be my jaws. This is going to be my bit. And the rest of this will draw out for reins. Now, if you don't, because I have a power hammer, I just run the whole thing out on the power hammer, easy peasy. I understand a lot of guys don't have a power hammer, they're doing this by hand. If you're doing it by hand, cut your piece about 5 or 6 inches and then make a scarf. I have a piece here somewhere. Make a scarf on it, and then you can weld a piece of 3/8 on and forge that weld in and make your reins out of it. So that's where we're going to start. Like I said, these are already marked. I'm going to get right in. Grab my tongs. So this is a set I started that I just scarfed them here a little bit. You would, at this point here, you would just weld on a piece of 3/8. Whether you want to forge weld it or whether you want to stick weld it, doesn't matter. You know, matter of convenience, what you can do. If you can't forge weld, then stick weld it by all means, and then just forge that weld in, and that'll give you your range you need. There you go. Go ahead, turn it. So this here's my shop cat, my guard cat. Her name's Shop Cat, or Kitty, or whatever, pretty much whatever I want to call her. Anyway, she's usually quite a bit in the way, so she'll be in and out of this thing all day today. Alright, time to go. Alright, so first step, I'm going to come to the edge of the anvil right here. I'm going to find my notch. I'm going to lay it on that edge. I'm going to hammer that down in. I'm going to make a notch in that. Keep up with it. Keep it kind of flattened out right there. Don't go too deep. Then the other side, same thing. I'm going to catch it on this edge of the anvil. Drive that down. So I'm just kind of working that back and forth on that edge a little to thin that out. Keep up with your thickness here. The longer your marks are between your jaw or your bit and the longer your marks are between your bit and your boss, the longer this jaw is going to be right here. So just depending on how much loop you want in your jaw, keep it short, make it long, whichever you like. Right in the middle of that, once you get her started, be careful. You don't have any hammer control. then you don't want to get in here because you'll booger up either your bit or your boss. So try to keep that as clean as you can. There's a nice little tool, kind of a trick I got that if I need to get in the middle of that, I just made me a block, about a 1-inch piece. I drop it in the Hardy. You can anchor it in there if you want. Sometimes it'll just stay. That'll help you get in here so you can finish that out a little bit on the edges. Kind of gives you a little room to hammer, unless you've got some other blocking that you can get in, maybe a Hardy of some kind that you can get in there and not have to be on an angle here. That'll help you get this a little more level all the way across. Keep your thickness. Watch where you're at this way, so you keep your thickness the same as the rest of your stock. And then whatever you think you want in here for thickness. Leave this end by the boss a little thicker so that you have some strength in this jaw area. Here's the thing, once you start bending stuff and tweaking it around by that boss, you're going to end up thinning it out a little more anyway. So leave it a little heavy there. Then we're going to kind of square up this end where the bit's going to be. Just want to kind of make that square that a little bit. You can even thin it out just a little height-wise this way. Square everything up. Then this thing. Check them to see that you're about the same length. You want to be pretty close in here. So this one here is just a little shy. I can widen it out a little bit more. A little. Okay, that's better. So take your time, play with it a little, you know, try to get everything lengthwise lined up to the same, where they're pretty close to the same length in here. About like so. Not bad. Close enough for this. All right? It's important to try to keep everything even and in proportion, so that, because you're making these both exactly the same. All right, same direction, everything. You're just going to flip them when you go to put them together. So you want to make sure you got good lengths on everything. You're your jaws are the right length and everything. As far as your reins go, you can be off an inch or so either way. You just cut the ends and even them up. Even if your bit is a little off, just hit her with the grinder, square everything up. You'll be good. But try to get your jaw especially even so that everything comes out even on these edges. I'm gonna get on the boss part of it next. Same thing. I'm just gonna go to the edge of the anvil. Now, what a lot of guys will do is they'll take a sharp. They'll either take a chisel or a sharp edge fuller or something like that. This isn't bad. This is no different than the edge of my anvil. So something like this would be okay. But where I've had the biggest trouble years ago when I first made my first tongs, if you cut with a sharp chisel or sharp mark in either one of these, you tend to get a cold shut in there. A sharp edge will leave a crack that will just keep going. You can't hardly stop it. So I like using a more blunt edge, a corner, or even something to use as a fuller that you can drive that down in and not leave a crack in there that's going to keep growing over time, because it will, unless you file it out or grind it out. But by the time you do, you've started getting too thin. You've already lost integrity. Alright, so same thing. I'm going to my mark right here for the back side of the boss. I'm going to go to this side of the anvil because I want that notch in here going that way. Work that back a little bit towards where that rain's going to be. Same thing as you did in the front of this. Leave this heavy back here. Don't get too thin. Don't even go halfway if you can avoid it. Because as you start drawing all this out, you're going to thin that a little more anyway. So you might as well leave it a little thicker. Leave it to start. Now, two things you can do here. You can either leave them corners square on here, or you can come in and just round them up. Kind of aesthetics, whatever you like the look of. Function wise, I don't think it makes a difference. Almost too thin. And what you can do is just go right in here on top like this. Just kind of round that up. Same thing over here. Just get right in here and just round that up. And then make sure you flatten that back out because you're upsetting it and you're leaving an edge. So you just want to clean that up a little. Same thing with this one. Once I get this hot, I'm just going to kind of knock this back in here. I'm using a rounded part on my anvil so that I don't leave a notch anywhere. I'm just going to kind of clean this up a little bit right here. About like so. What I want to do next, and actually I could have done it before I started that bend, I probably should have. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take and make the V in my bit. Okay, so I'm going to be cutting this in right in here. I'm going to go to the vise, clamp that in and cut it. Take your time cutting that. Make sure you get it straight right in the middle. This is where I usually screw up. I get in a hurry and I'm not getting it even, and well, you'll see, it'll butterfly all over. So here's what we want to do. We're going to get right in here. Clamp her down good. Now I want to find the center best I can. I'm going to do it light. Just to make a light tap through here. Make sure my line's in the middle. And then I can start coming in a little harder. Try to keep your chisel straight up and down best you can. The other thing is, when you go to start cutting, you make the cut all the way through, turn your chisel around for the next pass. Because what happens is, no matter how good you are on a grinder, you're not going to get that angle on both sides of that chisel the same. So if you're turning your chisel back and forth, you got a better chance of staying in the middle of it. So I've got it started. Like I say, not much of a hurry. I'm just going to get in there and get my first line going. I'll take another heat and take it down to the depth I want. Now depending on what size of bit I'm making, whether it's 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/8, 5/16, or 5/8 I mean, 3/4, that's going to be how deep I cut this. Now I've found that if I cut this right about 3/8 deep or so, I can use that 3/8 bit for both 3/8 and 1/2 inch bar stock. So you kind of save yourself having to make a whole lot of different sizes of tongs if you'll do that. But if you really like making tongs, then make one for every size of steel you're going to use. It's really good practice anyway, but you can if you're in a hurry, you can make one tong that'll fit for several sizes. So I'm right down the center, pretty close. Watch your angle. If it looks like it's rolling one side or the other, angle your chisel a little to square it up. Like I said, take your time. Make sure you get your cut in the center. Take your time cutting her through. Take a couple of heats. Take 2 or 3 heats, whatever you need. At this point, it beats. If you screw that bit up, you've already spent a lot of time hammering something out. So take your time to get the bit right, so you won't have wasted all that other effort. So again, you can kind of mark your chisel and eyeball it, whatever it takes you to know your depth. I'm going to get about there. I'm probably close to 3/8 depth-wise. 1/4 inch or so. So I could go a little deeper. I like the look of that one. I'm actually right down to my brain, or my jaw right there, and I'm right at just a little over 1/4 inch, so that'll probably be good. I'm just going to take that one right down there too. Try to get her even all the way across the bottom. Yep, pretty close. I like to use the term good enough. And I had a class last week, and a woman was hammering, and she was working hard to get what she was doing. And she says, "What do you think?" And I look at her and say, "Good enough." She didn't like that. She thought that was compromising. And I said, no, this ain't rocket science. This is blacksmithing. It's good enough. All right, so what I like to do when I make the bit, I like to take a piece of bar stock, whatever size I'm going to do, 1/2 inch, 3/8 inch, whichever one. You can do either or, because this set of tongs right here will work for both. This will handle a 1/2 inch just fine, and it'll also handle 3/8. So either one of those will work. This in here will give you a little more coverage, but you're going to get, it's all going to depend on the depth of your cut anyway. Get right in the top of it, straight down. Now watch how these are flaring. Watch how that's flaring. If that's not getting level, if one side's more than the other, put it in at an angle and tap it over that direction. You can manipulate that to get that in the middle. Pretty close. Or as they say, good enough. Sure don't grab the hot end. Straight down. Take a look at it. See if it's going straight. If you have to, you just mash it over a little, one side or another. That looks pretty good. Any questions? Any answers? All right, we'll move on then. Next, I'm going to go ahead and shape my jaw in here. Get the bit all set, fairly close. And all I'm going to do for that is just come around here. I'm actually going to cool that bit just a little bit so I can kind of lay it back. Then I want to come in and I'm just going to roll this whole thing over. This is where I want to make sure I had enough of a angle down here where this runs in, so that as I pull this over the edge here, you can tap it off the backside there a little bit. We're going to round that up a little, and we'll make more of an adjustment. We'll make more of an adjustment on this later when we go to after we put everything together and adjust our jaws. We're just kind of getting this started around. We'll leave it there a minute. Pretty close fit for both of them. We'll switch her around and get my reins out of the way, and then we'll punch a hole. Alright, I'm gonna pull the reins out real quick. a little spring switch I made that I can put on, and it'll just round up them reins a little bit. So that cleaned them up pretty nice. Got a nice little round to them, and everything kind of flattened back out down here. So we're in good shape there. Make sure they're straight. We're in good shape. Move off. Looks like camel. Straighten them up. All right, we're going to punch some holes next. Just get our hole for our. It got hot. Get our hole for our pin that we can put in. So this is the punch I did a while ago. I cleaned it up a little more on the belt sander. We'll see how it works. I'm just going to eyeball center. A lot of times guys will find center while it's cold and put a punch mark. But
you like to live dangerously.
So what I'm doing, I'm cooling my tip. Somebody will probably comment you ain't supposed to cool S7 in water, and I probably ain't supposed to, but it's working. I got my punch down. I got my hole down to where you can see the black mark right there. That bullseye, that's what we're aiming for. I want to keep it out. I'm not going to reheat because I want to shear that hole, so I'm going to get dead center of that hole. Well, and knock her through, which I did. There we go. Okay, so we got a good clean hole. All right, pretty much center, you know, eyeball it on there, or like I said, use a center punch and make your mark. Okay, I'm actually going to get this out of the way. Same thing here, find center, get her started, couple of hits. Rotate your punch as you're punching that hole. Do a couple of hits. Next time in, rotate it a little bit. Same thing as with this. You can't grind it perfect, so you're going to have a little oval or egg shape maybe. All right. So I got my hole where I want it. There's my bullseye. Went all the way through nice and clean. Got another hole. All right, pretty centered, looks good. I'm happy with that. The heat's really walking up on them rays, so I'll cool those off again. So here's what you're looking for when you punch a hole. All right, you saw how thick the material started out. That's what I hammered it down to by the time I flipped it over and punched the hole. The idea is you hit it while it's cold on that other side so that you shear it. Because if you reheat it and then try to punch it through the other side, it's going to work like a rubber band. It's just going to keep stretching back and forth. So you want to shear it. You want it cold so it'll break. And look at this. The punch held up nice. No flaring, no burr, no nothing on it. That's really nice. Now normally, for years, 20 years or better, I've been using sucker rod for my punches and chisels. It works good, but after about 2 pair of tongs, I got to dress this edge because it starts to mushroom. So, you know, cutting 4 holes maybe, and I'm dressing this. This one here hadn't even started to stress, so I think I'm going to start moving all my tools to this S7. All right, so I want to widen my hole. I'm going to put it in here on the Pritchell hole, and I'm going to move it around. Don't just hammer it in one spot. Move it around the edges, and it'll help that hole stay even, and you won't get a big pucker. If you try to hammer it through a big hole, dead center, you'll pucker that whole thing down in there. We don't want to do that. So, probably one more. This is what I got a piece of 3/8, and that's what I want. I'm almost there. I'll do one more heat. Flattened out because it's gonna make a little bit of an edge from drifting it through. So keep it flattened out. Make sure you go through both sides because you're at a taper. If you only hammer through one side with a taper, you're going to have
Where are you? Where are you? You're 2.
Where am I?
There you are.
She can't find me. Because of that taper, you have to do both sides to make the hole even. Alright. Good. It's a little loose, that's okay. When I put my rivet in, it'll swell. Well, this one's good. I'm just going to leave it out. Ready to go. Matter of fact, I'm just going to cool it. Dress this one just a little more. you can look in that hole and almost see which side needs to be drifted out a little bit. You can see the cone shape. Pretty good. Here more. Remember, it's okay to make this hole a little oversized because when you heat that pin, heat expands, cold contracts. So when you heat that pin, it's going to be over 3/8 in size. So make your hole a little bigger. It won't hurt nothing. Pin will swell and fill that hole. All right. So what I do, take a piece of 3/8 rod, and I'll just go through and heat it up, and I'll just cut me off a bunch of these about 1.5 inches long. Like that. Okay, I got a can full from the last time I made tongs. I like to have a little more rivet hanging out. No real purpose other than I think it looks cool, so I leave them that way. I like them a little beefy looking. I'm going to heat that rivet up. So when I lay these tongs out, I want to lay them out left to right. I want my right to go over the left, okay? I got a pair here that are backwards. These are what they call backwards tongs, or whatever, I don't know. Right-handed, left-handed. These are how they should be, all right? Why? I don't know. It's just tradition. I always tell people when they ask why it's left over right like that, I said because that's how Tubal Cain did it. Now Tubal Cain was Noah's brother, and it says in Genesis that he was a forger of iron and bronze implements. So that's how Tubal Cain did it. Good enough for him. That's how we're going to do it. So I like to use a little bit of a bolster so that when I drop that pin in on the anvil, I've got some space there. I'm not just putting it in the tongs and the tongs are flat and I end up with this much rivet on this side and this much on the other side. So I use a bolster. This bolster happens to be about 3/8 thick. So that's going to be just about right. Right, left. Okay. Pop in. Put it in the hole. This one over the top. Make sure they come together, because if you try to hammer them, set that rivet with a gap between, then you're going to end up with a gap between forever because you'll never get that closed up. Flip it over, work this side. Good, tight, flip it over. So I just work these down kind of I'm rounding around it. Just set the rivet. You can hammer that rivet pretty cold, it'll be okay. Don't go too cold or you'll end up cracking the edges and it'll look kind of yucky, but alright, got it? Okay, so now what we need to do is heat this whole thing up so we can adjust the bit and the jaws the way we want them. And also we need to loosen this up, of course. Alright, so I'm about ready with that. Got these jaws heated up. I'm going to use the 1/2 inch to set my jaws, my bit. And I'll just lay it over here so I can get at it. I'll use the vise. I'll loosen these up. See how easily they loosen? I want to make sure they're lined up. I'm going to just take and tap these down on both sides, even do the reins a little bit there. And that kind of brings everything more in line. Get a better straight line on this. A little adjusting here, maybe tweak this around. Make sure those are pretty close to being square. Sometimes you got to kind of do a little finessing. Take your time, get everything straight and right with the world before you go too much farther, so that you can make these work right. So I'm going to do one more heat real quick, then I'm going to grab this piece of 1/2 inch. I'm going to go to the vise. And I'm just going to reach in and squeeze the whole set together, and that will kind of allow me time to move around here and square things up. I think I'm going to change vices real quick. I like my big vise for pounding and setting stuff, but the jaws don't line up quite as nice as this one does. So. Alright, here we go. Just reach in and grab this if I can get a hold of it. Squeeze her a little bit. Should already have this open. Try to remember to have your tools all set up before you go. Okay. So I'm a little off to the left on this. I'm going to tap her over a bit. That set my jaw better. Everything in here is pretty decent. Not too bad with that. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Put them in the slack tub, work them. Keep working it while it cools off. Okay, so we're pretty good. You'll notice I can make a little adjustment here. I'm a little shy on this side and the distance is down here a little different. So, you know, there's some tweaking could be done, or you can just take it to the grinder and even up the ends. That's pretty close. That's not a bad set there. It will handle 3/8. You're a little tight here, so we might make an adjustment in here, but it'll take 3/8 and 1/2 inch. Always make sure you cool stuff off, because that was hot from holding that a minute ago. So that's a good 1/2 inch grip, and it will handle the 3/8 too. All right. So that's one way of doing them. I can heat this up and kind of tweak and pound, and I'll straighten those up a little bit later. I'm going to move on to the next set here, which is a little bit, as you can tell, a little bit different shape and a few different steps on how to get that. So what I start with there, same size of steel. I'm using 10 inch by 1 inch by 5/16. I have my marks a little bit different. All right, so hopefully I got this worked out. I grabbed the wrong tong blanks a minute ago. So this is this style of tong here. It's a little bit different markings and stuff. I've got a 1 inch, 2.5 inch, and then 3.5 inch. This is going to be the boss. This is going to be the jaw. This is going to be the bit. So a little bit different setup. I'm going to punch mark these real quick, get them in the fire, and we'll do it. So punch mark, notice I'm marking these out on the edge. Because that's where I'm going to be cutting, making my marks to cut in on the anvil. So I want them on the edge. Plus, they're easier to see because you'll notice there's a little bit of a swell from that edge. So when they're in the fire and this stuff gets really hot, it's kind of hard to see. That's also why I use a square tip for my punch, because it makes the mark easier to see in the heat. But if you're on the edge like that, it also gives you an index there that you can see just by profile. So on to the next one. We're going to be doing this one right here. Got the steel hot. Same thing. Again, the marks. Look at how they stand out on that edge. You can see those really good that way. All right. Same thing. Start with that edge. Hammer that down to get your bit separated. Then we're going to flip it over and come to this side here. Hammer this down. So I'm still drawing out my jaw. It's just I'm on opposite sides of it. I'm making a Z shape instead of cutting a notch down the center on one side. One thing I haven't mentioned, I probably should, when I'm hammering here to get this notch and this notch, I'm doing a half face blow. So I'm kind of hitting half on, half off the anvil so that I can push this part down and keep this part notching up in. So out here when I start that, I'm half on, half off, same thing over here. I'm going to dress this end up just a little bit again. I want to square everything up. Watch the thickness. Double check, I'm pretty close. So I'm pretty close on my length on both of them. Good enough. Get these hot. Then I'm going to work my back side of the boss where I can work out my reins eventually. But I've got this part up here done now. You can change measurements on your stock to whatever you want for a jaw in here. Shorter, longer, whatever you want. Experiment with it. I find 1.5 inches is plenty, gives you plenty of jaw length. Personal preference, I guess. Again, I can see my mark right there. Half face blow, half on, half off, working back up on that edge a little. Make sure when you're using that edge that you're putting enough pressure here to keep this from bouncing out. Most people, where they make a mistake, is they let them bounce and then they hit it the second time and they chinger up the boss or whatever else they're working on. So you want to make sure you're keeping it locked in. Again, you can round them corners up if you want. Make sure everything's flattened back out. Next, I'm going to come right here again to a round spot, rounded edge, and I'm going to hammer this thing down. Now this is why I don't want to go too thin in here, because as I'm doing this, I'm going to be thinning that out a little bit in that, on that edge. So I just want to kind of clean this up right here, push this bugger all the way over, where you got this. So again, laying it down right here, sort of a round edge, where it's pretty much right in line, and I'm going to knock that over. Push it over, and then I'm going to kind of fold this all together. I'm just going to kind of work this back and forth around here. Draw that down over that. Then you clean that up a little. And you notice I got a little bit of a notch right there from going over that edge. Not a biggie. Come in and just dress it out. And that's why I like to keep that a little thicker back here to start with, so that when I do that I can clean it up. The difference with this tong is, on the other ones we did, we cut our notch across here. This one, we're actually going to cut our notch on the end. So that's why we wanted to square everything up at the beginning, so we can get that around there. Now here's where the wrestling match comes in. You don't want the bit that far out of line with the reins or with the boss. You want that bit to be back here behind it. So we got to take some heat and push that all back. You can come in, do a little dressing, whatever you need to do. Get it where you want it. So that's a little better. That one's back behind the boss and the reins a bit. So that's what we're after. Put everything up. Quit dropping tools. Alright, not bad, it's still a little off. Okay. Alright, you caught me wiping my face a minute ago. I know that where you guys are at, most of you down south, it's hot. We've been upper 90s here, I think we're 98 today, so it's a little warm.
At noon.
Alright. Back in the vise. Same thing. Watch where you put your chisel. Go light first. Make sure you got a good straight line. If you don't, at this point, you can move that line before you start getting too deep. Alright, changing vices. That other one wasn't holding. Back to this digging. Again, make sure you get right down the center. Do it light so you can see it. A little off on this one, so I'm going to move over just a hair. There we go. Good, I like that. Look around the front, see where you're at. Make sure you're going in straight up and down. You can look at the back and see the same thing. And what you're not seeing here is I got a little quench can over by my anvil, so that's what you're not seeing. I'm keeping my chisel cool. This one got a little crooked. I'm going to lean her way over and try to straighten it up. And again, get your depth what you think you want. What tool you're going to use. Probably pretty close to where I was on the other one. Yep, just a hair over a quarter. So we're good there. I didn't get this one deep enough in the vise, so it's wanting to bend on me. So make sure you get it down in there where you can get a good grip. Good. Alright, you probably saw me lay my hammer down and pick this up. Broke it. This is a little magnet that I keep. Keep a piece of magnet on my vise so that when I'm laying tools over here, they don't fall off. Just one of them little tricks. You keep it there. You can pile up a bunch of different punches and stuff, and they'll all just kind of stick there and not have to worry about them rolling off the hammer, so they stay put. Again, we're going to do the same thing as we did on the other one. We're going to get in here. We're going to make our notch. Knock that over a little because I can see right away. Like that. So, nice and square. Good. So this side's done. I'm going to flip it around so I can go to the reins. Remember which end's hot before you pick it up. All right, pretty good. drawn down and stuff. And again, if you like longer rings on your tools, just add an inch or whatever to your bar stock. If you're doing them without a power hammer, you're going to do this anyway, then just make the ring however long you want it. Alright, back to punching holes. We're going to punch the 2 holes for the rivet. Pretty good shape here as far as everything being even. Not bad. So we'll get our holes punched and then we can set the jaw like we did the other one using a piece of bar stock. Center. Bottom out, you can feel it, you can hear it. Got a really nice black bullseye there. There's my biscuit, slug, whatever you want to call it. There's my hole. Pretty well centered. Another good hole right there. Okay, then we're going to drift it out and fit. Remember to move it around. get that little lump off of there. Pretty close. Like it. That'll do. So I cool these. This is probably a no-brainer, but I cool these off before I put the rivet in because I don't want this to be hot and the rivet hot. They'll both swell. They'll both move and stretch. So I cool this off to put a hot rivet in, and that way just the rivet swells, and then we can make our adjustments by reheating the whole thing together. Good. Okay, bolster again. Body over left, left hand, right hand. Again, make sure you're close together. Alright, got her on there, riveted nice and tight. We'll get her all heated up, loosened up, make our adjustments here, and then do the same thing with the bar stalk and the vise. Alright, got her heated back up. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a milk there. Line this stuff out a little bit. Good. Just kind of tip-tap them around till you see they line up where you want. They're kind of close together where they're going. I'm a little cockeyed here. I'm going to knock that down a bit. So I'm pretty straight on right here. I kind of like the look of that. Gonna take one more heat, cool them reins a little bit. Take one more heat right there, and then we'll grab that piece of bar and make our set. Open your vise up, get your tools all ready that you're going to use. Have them laid out where you need them so that you can get to them, you're not hunting for them. Vise is already set pretty close where it's going to be, need to be. Actually, you, at this point, you can tweak your reins a little bit so you get your fit that you want. Remember, if you're going to use this for 3/8, you want to leave yourself a little more gap. Line everything up. Alright. That'll hold the 3/8. And the half. So you can tell quite a bit of difference on how the jaw sets on these. Okay, a lot of it's just going to be what it is you're using it for. These are great for railroad spikes because you can get the head in here behind it. And another nice thing about this is it's a little shorter grip, so you get to the boss, you can back to the boss easier with your steel and not have so much steel in there. These tend to be a little bit longer, as you can see. Just kind of depends on what you're using them for, I think, or what your preference is. So there's those two. We're going to move on to the next one. It's going to be a box jaw, like this. The steel is marked. I got 9-inch steel. I've got 1.5 inches to the first mark, and then I got about 1.25 inches for my boss, and I'll show you why, because I'm going to make a fuller right here, and that's going to eat into my boss a little, so I want to give myself a little more for the boss. Again, this is 1 inch by 5/16. I'm going to make a 3/4 inch box jaw. If I want to make a 1 inch box jaw, I would probably go to 3/8 thickness because I can spread this more to get more material for the wider jaw. But we'll just jump on this one here. Punch my marks real quick. Again, I'm out at the edge on both of them. Into the fire. We're going to do this box jaw tong, and so we're going to set up our tools. I'm going to use a hold down, and I'm going to fuller part of this to get this section in here. Where I have this deal in here on both sides, turn it around, I fuller that in, okay? This is probably a piece of 5/8. You can use 1/2 inch. And I go on that first mark. So I'm going to clamp it down here. Now there's 2 ways to fuller. You can put a fullering device on your anvil and hammer into it. You tend to beat out a sway back in it. You get a little saddle in it. I like to lay it flat and beat my fuller into it, and then I get a cleaner notch. So there's my marks. See them pretty good. I'm going to stand this up on edge. I'm going to lay my fuller right in the middle of my mark. I'm going to go down about 1/3 of the way through. So we got this. Alright? It's also thickened up where the fuller was. We want to clean that up. If it doesn't look deep enough, you can always go back in here, take it down just a little more. We don't want to go too deep because we're going to draw this down later. Just make it square. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. And if we start out too deep, we're going to end up too thin in here. To start with. Do it again. This piece is going to be done just the same. Clean it up. Go ahead and hammer that back in a little more. Get that cleaned up so you got a nice fuller about a third of the way through. Okay. Next we're going to go over vise with this. Set up. And I'm going to twist this. So I'm going to pull it in right up to the fuller mark. Right about in the center of that fuller mark is where my claw is. And I'm going to twist to the left. This way. Alright, so this is what we have. We're pretty much parallel 90 degrees to the twist. Take another heat. We'll do the other one exactly the same. Because remember, we're making the same part twice, sort of, so that we can mirror them and make them match. Make this a pretty tight twist. If you get too tight, you'll end up. If you get too tight, you can leave cold shuts and cracks. So give yourself about 1/4 to 3/8 inch from where the vise is to where you put your wrench to get your twist. Now, back on the anvil, we're going to clean that twist up, make everything nice and square. So I'll go to the off side here, hammer that down, come to this side here, and I'm just going to keep working this back and forth. Try to find a round spot, go to the horn if you have to get a good round spot. And all you're doing is pressing the corners off that twist. I like the horn. Rotate it back and forth right here. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Square it. You might still have just a little bit of a corner showing. That's not bad. It's not going to hurt anything. You can actually take a file and knock the sharp edge off if you want. It's not bad right there. Alright, same thing. Press that up. Don't over hammer it. Okay, this is where you get in trouble. Why I said go only 1/3 of the way through. Because you notice how deep my fuller's gotten already. So starting out 1/3 of the way through, I'm already halfway down. So you want to watch that you don't get too deep to start with, or that'll thin out too much. I did a class in here earlier this year, a tong making class, and one of the guys over hammered this, and by the time he got his rivet set and everything, this end of his tong just fell off. So you want to watch that. One of these, we're going to draw down a little bit. To about 3/4 inch. Maybe a little less. Because we're making a 3/4 inch box jaw. So this will be the top, and the bottom piece. This will be the drops. This will be this piece right here that I'm hammering right now. Okay, the flat part. So pretty close, anywhere inside 3/4 inch is going to be good. This one here, this is going to be the box part. So we need to spread it this way. So we're going to cross peen it. Spread this material this way so we have enough to fold over the sides to make the box. So right away you start right on top using your cross peen. Keep it even, back and forth, up and down. Push some of the material both ways. Pull it this way, push it out this way so you have a little offset. Try not to get too high up into here. Hammer in here. Stay down below this so you don't thin this part out any. So we've got our mark for our boss back there. I'm going to go ahead and put it started. So I can get my rings ready to go. And again, you can round up your corners if you like. Keep everything flat and in proportion. If you start walking your twist out a little bit, you can always come back in. You can see how that's at an angle. You can always come back in and make a little adjustment to square things back up. Hot stuff moves. Okay. Square this up a little here. Hammer out those cross beam marks. Gentle in here so that you don't thin that out. Check your width. So I'm 1.5 inches. I got more than enough. I could actually do a 1-inch box jaw with this one, but we're just going to stick with the plan. You notice I'm moving vices around a lot. Depending on the vise I like to use, I like this one here because it's got a sharper jaw. It'll make the bends easier on this box jaw compared to this one here. The jaws are a little more rounded, so I don't get a clean, crisp bend in it. So this one here is nicer. You notice my vices are on discs. Everything in the shop's as portable as possible so I can move stuff around. So that's always a good way of doing it if you can. Alrighty. Start right here. Clamp her down. Up a little more. Right there. And I should have had this tool out and I didn't. So I'm probably going to lose my heat and have to do it again. Here we go. Okay, so what I used was just a blunt punch. Because a lot of times it's hard to get the hammer into the corner. Alright, so it's just a blunt. You can use a square bar, whatever you want. But it's hard to get the hammer right in here to get that. So if you start with the punch, it'll go way better. Alright, I'm going to heat the other side. You want to make these a little looser than 3/8 or 3/4. Again, when you heat your stock, you're working with hot material, it expands. So it is going to be a little wider. April made me clean my shop up a little bit. Now I can't find any of my scrap. There it is. Sorry, it's not her fault. So I'll end up using this to set my jaw on this piece, but I also want to check it right now once I bend that corner to see how tight or loose I am. Not bad. Like that. Just a little. Just a little loose. So I can close that up a little bit. But it'll probably be good with a hot piece of steel. So this one, on to the boss on this one, and then we'll do the reins. Now, I'm going to show you something in a minute. Matter of fact, I'll show it right now. So remember I said I probably let that cool off too much. I need to reheat it. And then I went ahead and hammered it anyway. So here's what happened. I got a crack on that edge. So that will have to be redone because that will eventually break through. It's not too bad right now, but I have a feeling it'll fail eventually with a lot of hard use. So again, take your time. I should have pulled it out of the vise, put it back in the forge and reheated it. I didn't. So by example, I showed you what not to do. Alright, so I took a little break a minute ago and I redid this box jaw because there's no sense in putting together a pair of tongs that wouldn't be serviceable. So that edge was broke, it wouldn't last long. So I just took the time and rebuilt another one. Now we'll move on with putting this pair together. Same thing, we're going to draw out the reins on this in a minute and punch our holes, and we'll do just what we did here. I'll show you how to set the jaw on it and everything, and those will be done. I'm just going to start drawing the reins out on this one. usually a lot more fun when I got a bunch of people asking questions. So
You ever get burned?
Do I ever get burned? Yeah. Never. Why would I get burned? I'm smarter than that.
Was your granddaddy a blacksmith? You ever seen that one TV show? You know, where they make swords and knives.
No, I didn't know there was such a show.
Oh boy, you should see it. Well, you should be on it.
Yeah, so when I have a one-person audience, this is the kind of questions I get.
How much do you love your wife?
You can't talk about that stuff on TV. God knows we'll probably offend somebody.
Her?
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I don't offend nobody with that. All right, we're going to punch some holes. Again, find your center. Make sure you use the edges of your anvil to keep your bits and stuff off the edge so you're not bending stuff up. Makes your life easier. Perfect, just right. By the time I clean it up, it may not be. It'll do. Right. Let's go. We're making lots of tongs. It's kind of nice just to cook up a can full of these things and have them on hand. I just use a hot cut and just a spring swedge butcher. Cut them, heat them, cut them, heat them, cut them, heat them, cut them, heat them, cut them. Just cut on pieces you need. Okay. sure you get them right. You don't want to do that. Make sure they're lined up in the right place. Probably before you quench them, it's a good idea to make sure everything's going to go together. But that'll be pretty good. It'll be stuck apart anyway when I do it. All right, right over left, left down, right over top. Tight. There we go. That's why I like to make them a little loose. I'd rather not fight them and have them gall. There we go. You got to rivet it in, take a heat, loosen everything up, square everything up, and then we'll use a piece of bar stock to make our set. So these jaws, depending on where your reins are adjusted, you should be able to fit 1/4 inch, you should be able to get a hold of 1/8 inch, you should be able to get a hold of 3/8, 5/16, anything in that size range will fit in that box. So, loose. Give myself, tweak a little bit of a crotch there. Line those up. These ones here. There. And then I want to straighten this stuff up here. That I'm in line. Just going to hammer that down in a little bit. Kind of messed up my deal here. Almost too much. Since that was hot, I don't know which end I had. I'm not going to pick it up. Everything's hot. What the heck? Alright. Close that a little more. So you can kind of take this over the horn and move it here. Same thing with this one, and that way it doesn't mess up your adjustment that you've already got on the reins to some extent. You may have to still tweak it around. Alright, into the vise. I'm going to bite about 3/4 of the way in, about 1 inch or more. And then I can spread these back here because this is all still hot. Then I want to look at it, see how everything's lining up. Pretty good to go. Cool real quick. Make sure you work your jaws so it doesn't lock up on you. And then we should be good for, well, I got a little bind right here, so I'll have to clean that up. Let me do that right now. Hang on. So, just need to push this over a little. Sometimes it just takes a little finessing. Moving stuff around. Doesn't take a whole lot. Just kind of eyeball it, see what you need. That's why you want to make sure this part here is narrow enough to fit inside them jaws without, you know, this one here is a little narrower, so you want to give yourself plenty of room. sticking on you, give it a tap like that. It usually comes right loose. But this should grab this stuff just fine. It's all hot. It'll grab the 3/8, I mean the quarter, and it should be able to grab some 3/8, 5/16 with it too. So there you go. What I'll do, usually I'll just cut that off with the bandsaw, grind it, clean it up, just dress it out a little, wire brush everything, you're good to go. So, I hope you got something out of this. Kind of like drinking through a fire hose, I guess. You know, you got a lot of information at once, but the key is repetition, repetition, repetition. Start building some tongs, just keep practicing, watch the video a couple times, just get after it. You're gonna make mistakes, that's all right, you know. I always say there's no mistakes in blacksmithing, there's just design revisions. So just keep hammering and keep it hot, make it happen. All right.